I have a presentation, but until it's set up, I'd like to actually congratulate ITC for this approach of open door. It is refreshing to see organizations, multinational organizations, open up for new ideas and cross-fertilization of communities from different disciplines. It is quite interesting, and I think it's a trend that is catching on very slowly in the international organization. IMF is doing this now, but congratulations is due here for what you are doing. I've learned quite a bit from these two, and I suspect it's going to be useful. So, like to pick up on a matter that Ashish mentioned, and when he first came to the first positive outcome of the Arab Spring, which is, he called it Unleash Entrepreneurship Potential. And I share with you here a slide from Cairo. When I was there in the Tahrir Square last Friday, there was a continuous expression that you referred to, Dr. Talat, of the pressure to push the clouds out of the way. And what this, for those who do not read Arabic, this says, freedom breeds innovation. It's a powerful notion. It's really at the heart of what's going on. Everybody, not only Egypt, I think every Arab country stand to benefit from this powerful notion, and it's absolutely brilliant that to find this, an average Egyptian young person sees this and puts it on a poster like that. So hence my first recommendation to ITC, embrace innovation as a theme in your technical assistance for small business, for trade. It is a key for the development future of the region, because innovation is driving economic development around the world, and different regions around the world are now creating niches for them and contributions to global economy. Hence, the notion of innovation as a theme of organizing technical assistance and economic development is, I think, is quite important. I chose to use, talking about competitiveness and global integration, any country or any region hoping to benefit from globalization, which I think we are now settled. I hope you agree with me. It's not reversible. It's a force that's driving the future of the world. Needs to think of itself in terms of where does it stand globally. And therefore, I chose to apply the framework, or to employ the framework of the World Economic Forum Competitiveness Report, the index, not only because I spent there 6 years, but I think it's a very useful frame to understand what the revolution in Egypt means. And then the next slide, I will elaborate a little bit more across other countries in the region. So we have here, I picked 4 axes to demonstrate every single factor around this spider web that you see there is one element or one factor of determining competitiveness of a country. But for the sake of our discussion today, the 4 most important axes are the ones that are circled with the red circles there. The first one on the right, public debt, foreign exchange regime, inflation, food prices, wage augmentation, deficit, subsidy, and capital account. These are a combination of macroeconomic factors that are emerging or imposing themselves on the economic agenda in Egypt right now. So what we learn really is Egypt's position immediately before the revolution in terms of public debt and fiscal deficit was not very good. It was already quite high. However, we emerged into a period now where it is impossible in the short term, from now until perhaps end of the year or early next year, first quarter of next year, the most important thing is budget support, which require increased resources, and hence it implies immediately an increase in borrowing and an increase in the fiscal deficit, which is very smart, good thing to do, but it implies a certain risk on the long term because we don't want to fall again in the conditionality dilemma of the 80s and the 90s, where countries are, like Egypt and other countries in the region, were caught with their debts, were unprepared to follow reform programs that enable the economy to sustain the payback of the debts. So what we see in Egypt now, what I saw there, and I think that the debate is emerging now, this is about that. How can you prepare the country? You have to borrow, you have to increase your fiscal deficit, but how can you prepare yourself to emerge out of this in a strong way? There are a number of things that need to be discussed, and perhaps as we go around, some of the answers will emerge from this discussion. Below that, it's an interesting, on competitiveness, but also on trade and industrial development in general. There is no doubt that with a revolution like what happened in Egypt and Tunisia, expectations of certain segments of society that has been marginalized for a very long time increases. We see this manifested in Tunisia as well as Egypt very clearly, that labor unions, certain groups of labor are demonstrating, asking for their rights. If 8 million people in Egypt, young people mostly, managed to topple the president and his very corrupt, oppressive regime, probably 100,000 of workers in Mahalla, Kobra, where the biggest concentration of textile business, can actually expect to gain benefits from themselves and for their welfare and the well-being. So they're demonstrating. But it is interesting that they are now responding, and they understood that the pressure needs to continue, but not to move too fast until we emerge from this crisis, and then we discuss benefits. The government is responding to that, and they are. But however, what this means is that we're going to be a new contract, if I can call it, in industrial relations between labor unions, who are now self-organizing, reforming, becoming more independent, more vocal, and business and government will have to find the balance. And this is essential that one keeps in mind or in sight that competitiveness is an ultimate goal for everybody. The three parties, labor, government, and business, have to align. They have to accept, of course, that there's a new paradigm in labor relations and industrial relations, but they also have to align themselves to the competitiveness. Otherwise, the economy will not be able to grow as we all desire, but everybody desires. Then on the left-hand side, we have institutions here refer to a number of things, such as property rights, such as judiciary, such as transparency and good governance in the private sector, as well as government, as well as business. And of course, corruption is at the heart of this institutional axis. There is no doubt, with the increased accountability that you refer to, and in constant pressure, I think accountability and transparency is set to deepen and to become a fundamental way of doing business and setting policy in Egypt, and I suspect also in other countries that are going to follow the path of reform. It is quite, I have to point this out, that finding a new formula for the future of the country will have to be negotiated in a political setting in the next year. I would point one very important point of negotiation on the economic agenda which will take place, which is property rights. We tend to forget about all the important things that are emerging there. You know, we talk about politics, talk about corruption, judiciary, all the security. These are very important matters, but they're crowding out the discussion on a fundamental pillar of enterprise and economic development, which is property right. A negotiation will manifest itself in a constitution early next year, and if fundamental good property, sound property right protection is not enshrined in this constitution, we will not reap the full benefit of this kind of revolution. Last but not least is market size. I think it's the most relevant to ITC, market size. We see here that, and the other slides that you will, the market size is not one of the biggest advantages of the Arab world, whether the GCC, relative to the rest of the world. So if capital and money and investment is scanning the world, looking at the best opportunity to land, they obviously look at market size as one of the most important competitiveness, in addition to all the others, of course. But here, I think there is an emerging and interesting philosophy in that. Traditionally, the trade relations of this region has been immediately due to Europe because of the geographical proximity, and United States being the largest economy in the world. And right now, we are seeing that the growth rates of these two very large economies is not really the fastest in the world. I think it makes perfect sense to actually see what kind of trade relations can this region and each country in the region develop with the emerging economies. Fast growth, extremely igniting growth. I think it's quite important for ITC to introduce this concept of how do you encourage, if I'm a country like Egypt, how do you actually move on that direction to develop your free trade arrangements with the emerging economies? Because they can drive your economy much faster on the path of growth badly needed in the next 4 or 5 years. So it's essential that we explore this fundamentally. And I see your 3 pillars or 3 impact areas are really excellent for this. So if some kind of alignment between the 3 and this concept of developing free trade relations or arrangements with emerging markets, I think will go a long way in helping Egypt in the immediate future. Someone mentioned, one of my colleagues here mentioned the free trade agreements as a challenge for, I think it was you, Ricardo, authoritarian regime. I agree with you. It does shake the table, but I fundamentally worry about giving a dictator also the benefits of the trade agreement. So I would agree with you, but then say, look, Egypt, Tunisia, give them, the best thing to do is not international development assistance or ODA, it's actually access to markets. And that's what you reward. You reward after the fact. So you create the incentive for that, and you show the dividend of freedom and democracy in the, so I wanted to have this as a discussion point. So this is learning from the Egyptian experience, and I have to say, when I looked at the Tunisian reality, is pretty much the same. I just elaborate here a generalization on the Arab world. It's very more or less on the same lines, but of course we can see differences, very broad differences. For example, on the macroeconomic environment, the GCC is safe even if oil and gas export were interrupted due to the currently strong fiscal standing. However, the rest of the Levant, Jordan, Morocco, Algeria, are very vulnerable in terms of their macroeconomic standing. Very good. Half a minute. Okay, that's perfect.
One or two.
We're deciding the future of the Arab world, and I get half a minute? No. Now, very quickly, I mean, the concepts are the same. The proposals are the same. We have the same implication for the labor. As we all know, the labor conditions in the GCC are very different from those at the Levant and the rest of the Arab region, especially for expatriates. I mean, my worry on the GCC is actually how do you deal with expatriate labor? And there will be quite a strong, there's already an emerging nationalization, Saudization, Emiratization, Kuwaitization, Qatarization of labor force. This will become even stronger and more pronounced if reform is embraced by these countries. The same thing for gains and corruption on the institutions, and the same stands true for free trade arrangements with emerging economies. Everybody stands to benefit, including the GCC. I think they're all even on that. I can have one last slide, which I also want to share with you. This is how Egyptians feel. And I also think all Arab people, all Arab young people feel the same. And I'm sure I agree with you, Talat. This is, the path has been charted. The region is not going to be the same again, and they will all will be.